Welcome back, everybody. Thank you for sticking around. We're talking about the Democrats now. They're not as fun. They don't have the antics on their side in this campaign cycle the Republicans do. Basically, talking about the Democratic race is kind of like eating your vegetables. you know you have to do it, but you don't really want to all the time. But you posed a question as to why Hillary, as could be the most qualified, but wouldn't make the best president. And I guess, to me it seems pretty clear why she's not getting the bump for her accomplishments the way that I think that she should, as a Hillary Clinton supporter myself. And it's the same old problem. It's that she's running against a wing of the party that is enthusiastic, feels like the Democratic Party itself has ignored some of their concerns for too long. A lot of the same way that the Republican Party is facing down some of its folks, not necessarily on the fringes, but people that have been not as energized to be a part of the political process as possible, and they throw this word around, and you see it on both sides, but to me, on the Democratic side, it's almost lost its meaning. This idea of it's the establishment. It's the establishment, stupid. Of course you can't win because you're a part of the establishment. And I guess the question that I want is not necessarily that the establishment is good, but the question I want to ask is, what are you going to replace it with? We have to have something. There has to be something to operate in a political sphere in this country. There has to be a leadership structure if we're going to have politics work at all. Like I've said, we've seen what happens when leadership breaks down. From your perspective, you get bad deals. From our perspective over on this side, you get a government that that the other side refuses to help fund, and people just. When leadership breaks down, you have people start arguing about who's the biggest hypocrite on Supreme Court nominations rather than decide how they're going to get a nomination passed. I can guarantee that there are enough votes in that Senate, enough Republicans who are scared enough of their seats in November, of losing a general election in November, that Barack Obama could get an honest up or down vote on his vacancy. But no one wants to do that because they just want to argue about the merits, the principle of it. That's what happens when leadership breaks down. So if you're going to say that you're not going to let an establishment, quote unquote, person like Hillary Clinton as the nominee and maybe bring a little bit of order back to the White House, or keep order going in the White House, what are you going to replace it with? Bernie Sanders wants to burn the entire establishment down, at least to listen to his rhetoric. And to me, he's making the same kind of mistake that Ted Cruz makes. He talks about Bernie is running on this idea that there's this political revolution that's going to sweep him into office, that's going to vote all of the Republicans and make it so his very left agenda gets passed. An agenda that I happen to like. I happen to like pretty much everything that he says. I don't believe there's a political revolution that's going to support him. I don't believe it's going to happen because we still have to do business with the other side of the aisle. So there are not enough liberals in the country to elect Bernie Sanders by themselves. We need moderate Democrats. We need some liberal Republicans, such as still exist somewhere, probably in New Hampshire. Ted Cruz, in my opinion, can't win the nomination just with conservative Republicans. He needs some other folks from in the middle and on the other side of the aisle to make that coalition work. When you speak to the base in the primary in such a way as to demonstrate that if the tack towards the center that we've always said needs to happen in the general will alienate those folks that you just energized, they're not going to come out for you. So you've painted yourself into a corner. I think that Bernie Sanders has painted himself into a corner with the liberal base, saying, I'm going to do all this stuff with your help because I'm going to mobilize everybody in record numbers, which he hasn't done. That's why it's been dangerous is not the right kind of word, but it's risky. It's a risky strategy.
Well, what do you think of this? People don't want politicians. I mean, but Brother George just pointed that out. I think that's one of the reasons Donald Trump on our side is going forward, is because people just don't want politicians. And Bernie is establishing himself, even though he is a consummate politician, as the outside person. Do you think it's how much of this do you think is an anti-Hillary thing? or an anti-politician thing.
I think that Hillary's going to have some anti-Hillary stuff just because she's been around. You talked about in the beginning of the segment, you talked about her needing to be scrutinized more. I don't think that's possible. I think that Hillary Clinton is the most scrutinized woman on the planet. We know pretty much everything about her.
Well, but do you think that she needs to be scrutinized?
But she has been. Whether she needs to or not, I think the vetting process has happened, and we have all taken an honest look, and people have found her wanting in some respects or satisfactory in other respects. But when it comes to being anti-politician, that's obviously the mood. But I guess the question I'd have for Joe and for everybody out there that says they don't want politicians running the country is, I mean, do you want a lawyer fixing your plumbing? Do you want a baker working on your transmission? Don't we want politicians doing politics? Don't we want people who are artful at compromise, who are artful at deal making, who know how to speak to the electorate to get public support behind things that in that leader's view would be beneficial? Not, even as low of an opinion I have about some of the Republicans running for Congress or running for president, I don't think they honestly are trying to get elected to hurt the country, right? I don't believe that about them. But don't we want folks that are willing to give that same grace to the other side running the country? We've seen what happens when politics works in America. And right now, I think that we've elected too many anti-politicians. We've gone too far the other direction. And that's what, and in my view, that's what's bogged us down. Not that we've been disserved by the politicians, but that we have elected too many folks that don't know how to do politics to a job that requires them to be able to do politics.
You know, that's a very interesting point. And what we're going to do when we come back is we're going to ask Lefty, well, what should these politicians on the left compromise over with the politicians on the right? I think that'd be a pretty legitimate question.
Absolutely.
And so we're going to be back right after this break. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Without you, we couldn't do what we do. Thanks a lot. We'll be back right after.